go to Dr. Dipankar.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? All are present?
Yes, we can hear you, sir. We can hear you.
Yeah,
Dr.
you're audible.
Dr. Neelima Khetan present. Dr. Nandakumaran I can see. Sankhua sir I can see. All are present. Okay, madam, with your permission, with a short brief, should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
So this is the second session, very interesting session of our day-long seminar. This is management of water resources, policies and sustainability. The two pillars of water resource management, the policies and sustainability, and we have three very distinguished persons. The chairman is Madam Neelima Khetan, who is a visiting fellow, Brookings, India, and an experienced vice president for CSR of many large companies, multinational companies. She worked extensively and she was there in Irma for many years and very experienced person. Then she is chairing the session. Then we have Dr. P. Nandakumaran. He is now project director of ATAL Bhujal Yojna. ATAL Bhujal Yojna, where government of India is putting a lot of hope. For the first time, a scheme has come where they are in the scheme the incentives are giving on savings of water, on demand side intervention. So he is the project director of that very tricky mission, I will say, ATAL Bhujal Yojna. He's very experienced and he holds many posts in Central Groundwater Board previously. He was regional director, Kerala region. He was member Central Groundwater Board, member secretary Central Groundwater Authority, many papers. So I'm not going into all detail. He is a PhD from University, from Madras University of Madras. Then our another speaker is also very distinguished person, Dr. R.N. Sankhua, who is the chief engineer of NWDA, National Water Development Agency, who is spearheading the interlinking of rivers and many of the large river or surface water projects in India, planning of large surface water based projects in India. He obtained his BE in civil engineering from Rourkela and masters in IIT Kharagpur and PhD from IIT Roorkee. And he authored also 4 books and many papers. He guided many students in PhD. So a man, you can say, who has assembled both professional skill and academic skill, Dr. R.N. Sankhua. So I have introduced Dr. Neelima Khetan, Dr. P. Nandakumaran, Dr. R.N. Sankhua, and the session is Management of Water Resource Policies for Sustainability. Now I am handing over to the Honorable Chairman of the session, Madam Neelima Khetan. Madam, please take care of time. We are a little bit behind the schedule. And now I am handing over the stage to you. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saha. Really delighted to be on this panel. The first 2 panels since the morning have been really scintillating. And I am certain that with my co-panelists, we'll make sure that this panel is also worth the time of the attendees. I will begin with making some opening remarks on the overall topic of the session, which is on policies and sustainability. And then my 2 fellow panelists will speak. So I will just begin to present my slides. Please let me know if the slides are visible.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, as Dr. Saha said, this session is about sustainable water management issues in India and the policies for that. So, let me begin with, of course, none of this is new to anyone. Since morning, we've been speaking about them. But I just wanted to recap the 3 main issues when we talk about water sustainability. The 3 main sets of issues that we are talking about here. We are talking about quantity issues, we are talking about quality issues, and we're also talking about equity issues. So equity issues haven't been touched upon, I feel, since morning as much. But as with any resource that comes under scarcity or under threat, equity issues add yet another dimension where the underprivileged of a country will have less access to that resource, and the more privileged will end up still getting access to a scarce resource. So these are the three dimensions of the problem: the quantity issues, the quality issues, and the equity issues. And I think, like was said in the morning, most of our emphasis in the past decades has been on quantity issues. And even within that, the supply side and the demand side, quality issues is something that we've only just started speaking, and equity issues, I feel, still haven't moved center stage in these conversations. Uh, so just moving to the Niti Aayog State Scorecard, which came out in 2019, and I wanted to put this before all of you, which says that if you look at the scorecards, most of the states have done well in the infrastructure heavy areas of major and medium irrigation and watershed development. Watershed development cannot truly be called only an infrastructure heavy theme, because for a watershed to succeed, you also require the software of that, which is communities and people, to be to function as well as the infrastructure, the hardware of the watershed development. But in whatever way, the scorecard says that the major medium irrigation and watershed development states have done quite well. Interestingly, states have also done well in enacting policies, which are corresponding to the recommendations are within the policy and governance theme. But this, to me, is also in light with um, so many times people in different ways that in India, what is missing is probably not not the enactment policies, but the implementation of policies. And even in the card brought out by the Niti Aayog, it's that states are doing well in the enactment of also. And the where it's lagging behind in the following three critical, which is source augmentation. And the next slide is about these challenges, which the Aayog's own report identifies. So, what are the challenge areas according to the Aayog reports? Again, on groundwater resources, you've heard actually the previous panel, you heard a very good deliberation on the groundwater resources, and where we are really exploiting our groundwater resources at a very rapid rate. I know the secretary in the morning spoke about maybe mining of the deep water aquifers. I'm not an expert on that, but I feel that's another area that we should be careful while going into, because the recharge rates, as somebody said, groundwater is a kind of a fixed deposit with very low rates of return, very low interest rates. The recharge rates of that are very low, and so you keep exploiting and you will not be able to replenish it at the same rate or make it grow. So groundwater resources, the Niti Aayog report also highlights is an area that is a challenge area, and groundwater resources is also a challenge area because much of the exploitation of groundwater resources happens at an individual level. So it is beyond the state central regulatory capacities. And then sustainable water use practices, which again the secretary had touched upon in the morning, that agriculture accounts for 80% of all water use, but in terms of how we use the water, in terms of its efficiency, again, which is on the at the end of the citizen, how we are using the water, again leaves much to be desired. And rural drinking water, given our spread and the numbers that we have and water sources, that's again another huge challenge. And lastly, which the report does not call out as loudly, but which I have put here, is on water quality, which in the previous panel again you heard about at dangerous levels of water contamination here. So these are the kinds of challenge areas that the reports also identify. So everyone since morning is talking about now managing demand, the demand side, which also brings in the communities. So I have two slides which are about my thoughts on the sustainability of these problems. So this is the slide of what I want to say to you on how set up people-led or people-owned management in water, which will be sustainable management systems in water. Many of course, to do with some of these are to do with drinking, managing that, but also some are to do with how do communities begin to recognize the kind of water resources they have, and therefore what kind of agriculture will be suitable. In the previous panel, we heard about also what crops are suitable to grow in a particular area, what kind of, given the kind of water situation. But one thing is to have an expert body announce this is the water table in this region, and the crop that is like that is most. But as we also know, don't their agricultural practices because an expert is telling them to do so. Communities will change their agricultural practices or the cropping pattern only when there is a ownership and understanding of the community itself, when their peers, others within the communities will do that. And in that regard, the first point that I put here is about involving communities at the design itself. And many organizations in the country very interesting work with this concept of Bhujal Jankars, people in the community who understand water systems and integrating efforts have been made to integrate their traditional knowledge systems of water, and they are often also young people because you have to invest in the next generation understanding challenges. So bringing, co-opting, let us say, or building Bhujal Jankars, working closely with them to figure out what the community, the groundwater systems are, what kind of usage pattern does the community have, what changes are required, etc. So begin to involve the community from the design stage itself. It is not always, never a good idea to design and build something and then at the handover stage remember the community and then say let's form a water users association and hand it to them. So the kind of first set of bullets is all to do with involving the community from the very beginning, especially women also, which was said by in the first panel also with the SDC head. Um, Another point in this first bullet is also in some places we found that we do not secure water management system will be sufficient to service the entire village. There's no water in that, and then we are asking the community to manage. It does not. So factor in for the full demand of that community, and then build a system that to cater to that demand, or involve the community managing that demand in whichever way. Back to the design stage involvement. The second set of bullets are about involving the communities in management. Of course, having the appropriate appointment of the sanitation committee. Point to note here is that must include and also make sure that you include people from factions within the community. It is a romantic idea to think that everyone in the community is together. People are not together. There are factions, divisions. So, of course, over time, those factions lesser, but in the beginning, when you are putting in place a committee, we, uh, uh, we will do well to recognize that there may be different factions and to include representatives from all those factions. Another interesting experience often was that times when the billing happens, which is what apart systems, there will be families who are migrating or families that are staying away from the farm, and if they are also billed, then that also leads and enhance importantly a regular feedback system. The last bullet here, which I really want to emphasize a lot, is that I know is all about involving communities and is, as the secretary said in also, it is using the state administration to lead these participatory processes. And I would like to also put a suggestion here that please be open to hybrid approaches as well. As in the case of joint forest management in the very beginning, the forest department was also trying to put in place participatory joint forest management committees, but the forest department was also open to wherever there were civil society organizations, if they wanted to come into a tripartite relationship where you had the forest department, you had an NGO, and you had a joint forest management committee of the village. So a tripartite arrangement, because oftentimes volunteer organizations have closer relations with communities and can help factor in any problems or take care of any potential conflicts, etc., that may come in. It will also help you build on some of the really pioneering work done across the country by organizations like in community-led water management by organizations like Gram Vikas, ATAL, Khetan, etc. You can see the names here. But across the length and the breadth of the country, there are uh, a large number of organizations who have led actually the thinking in community-led water systems. And if the government can be more open to including them, using their knowledge, I think that will go to overall health, overall kind of addition to the strength of this program. And the other set of this other point that I wanted to make was it was interesting that the head of SDC, Ms. Corinne, also in the morning talked about that. For some time, as Dr. Saha mentioned, I also worked with some companies, also a beverage company. And one thing I realized that there is something like virtual water, which we don't talk about enough. And I think we are missing inefficiencies get hidden when we don't talk of virtual water. So just to see some of the numbers which are very striking. So when we think of a cup of coffee, we will often think of one cup of coffee being 125 milliliters. But actually, what would you say if somebody told you that one cup of coffee is actually equal to 132 liters of water, or almost 7 buckets of water is what we are talking about. That's the amount of water that is taken across the entire value chain, entire product chain of coffee, in growing the coffee, in processing the coffee, in packaging the coffee, and bringing the coffee to your kitchen counter. So that's 132 liters. So, and not just coffee, but most other, you can look at rice. 1 kilogram of rice, for example, takes up 2,800 liters of water. And India is, again, the SDC head spoke in the morning. She spoke of the other, which again I found interesting and so enlightened in a sense when she spoke about Switzerland being amongst the largest importer of virtual water, where I think she said 80 or 90% of their overall water footprint is an import of virtual water from outside. And if you look at that, India is today third largest exporter of groundwater, because 12% of the global total groundwater that's exported, virtual water, is coming. So just if you see in the previous point, for the 2014-15, when we exported lakh tons of basmati, that was exporting 10 trillion liters of water. And this is not to say that, we should stop exporting the exports where we are strong at, but when we begin to track the entire water footprint of any product or even services at times, when you begin to look at that totality, then you will also figure out inefficiencies or possibilities of efficiency that exist and which could make that entire water chain, water footprint more efficient. And like I said, when I worked in a beverage company, of course, a beverage company, the water use is so upfront, it's visible to everyone, that I would say beverage companies have become more cognizant of this virtual water footprint. But I think it is time when we began to look at the virtual water footprint of many other products that we are consuming, and just make society, all of us, more aware of the fact that, actually in our consumption patterns we may be really large consumers of water. So to sum up, we are talking about mostly, I feel, not talking about policies as much as talking about building communities, building for sustainability, building for equity. And as I said, the spotlight also needs to move on the hidden demand or our consumption patterns and virtual water, and the role of civil society organizations, which I think they can play a very, very important role. We need to reach out to them and form partnerships, and not always think of civil society organizations as, critics, but they can also be very good partners and collaborators. So that's all from my side, and I will request my fellow panel members to,
I think,
yeah.
Madam, now, so wonderful presentation, Madam. There are certain one or two questions in the chat box. We can, some discussion we can take afterwards. So Dr. Nandakumaran can come in and Dr. Nandakumaran.
Thank you, Dr. Saha, first for the flattering introduction, and thank you, ma'am, for setting the stage for discussions in this session. I know very well that 2 o'clock in the afternoon, after a curtailed lunch break, and that too after a session of solid scientific presentations, this is probably not the right time to make a presentation. However, I feel that your curiosity to know about ATAL Bhujal Yojna, which is a much talked about project these days, will keep you attentive. Anyway, I promise you that within the limited time available, I'll be trying to give you a flavor of what it is about. So with your kind permission, I would like to share my slide presentation. May I know if this is visible to everybody?
Yeah, visible.
Sir, not
visible.
yes,
Visible.
it's loading, sir.
And just wait.
Visible.
Is it okay now?
Okay. Okay. Please.
Thank you. So talking about ATAL Bhujal Yojna, I would like to thank our Secretary Sri UP Singh for introducing this project in his inaugural address. Of course, he is very passionate about this scheme, and he is our guiding spirit right from the design stage of this project. I thank him for that. So basically, before I start the presentation, I would like to just tell you that you talked about people-led sustainable management systems in water resources, involving communities at the design stage, involving communities in management of water resources, and involving NGOs and social organizations and CBOs wherever possible. So I'm happy to share that ATAL Bhujal Yojna, as we envisage, perfectly fits this bill, which you will understand, you will come to know more about by the time I'm through with this presentation. So I would like to start with two slides, which we groundwater people are very fond of. The first one is talking about the importance of groundwater, especially because we are the largest user of groundwater in the world, using around almost 250 billion cubic meters, that is, we can say cubic kilometers of groundwater every year, which accounts for almost 25% of the global withdrawals. And just for comparison, this is more than the groundwater extraction of USA and China combined. And when coming to the Indian context, almost 65% of the total irrigated area is dependent on groundwater. Whatever additional irrigation command added after 1970 Nearly 85% of all this area is catered to by the groundwater. 85% of our rural water supply and almost more than 50% of our urban water supply is dependent on groundwater systems. So there is absolutely no doubt that groundwater is a very important resource. The second thing which I would like to show is how critical the groundwater situation in the country is. This is a map or a graphic which you have seen many places, and it is very well understood also. We have got patches of severe overexploitation which are highly localized, especially in the northwestern part of the country and in the south in the hard rock areas. Nearly 20 to 25% of our so-called assessment units, which are blocks or districts or taluks, whatever, it varies from place to place, are either overexploited or critical. We have got almost 61% of our monitoring wells of Central Groundwater Board showing decline over the period of the last 10 years. So there is no doubt that attention is urgently required for managing the groundwater. And ATAL Bhujal Yojna is the new initiative of the Government of India, Ministry of Jal Shakti, in addressing this issue. Now, these are the concerns of our exploitation. We are very well aware. It has been highlighted by several speakers earlier also. They affect the underprivileged sections of the society in a very severe manner. This is detrimental to the sustainability. Income of farmers impaired, drinking water security affected, results deepening groundwater levels, results in high carbon footprints, drought vulnerability increases, etc. Now, coming to ATAL Bhujal Yojna, I would just start with a brief chronology of events. This scheme has been in the making since 2016, after which several rounds of consultations with stakeholders at various levels, including state, ministries, states, districts, NGOs, and the grassroots level communities were held. Then the scheme underwent comprehensive revisions, and it was finally recommended by the Expenditure Finance Committee in 2018. Subsequent discussions happened, and finally we got the cabinet approval on 24th of December 2019. This was launched by our Honorable Prime Minister on 25th December 2019 on the birthday of our late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and this is being implemented for a period of 5 years from 1st of April 2020. Now, this is just a snapshot of ATAL Bhujal Yojna for those who are not very familiar with the scheme yet. So this is, as I told, this is for 5 years. It has got a total outlay of rupees 6,000 crores, out of which 3,000 crores will be provided by the World Bank. And this World Bank lending instrument is known as, it's a quite recent development in the World Bank lending. This is known as a program for results. That is, they call it as P4R, which is a little different from the conventional infrastructure projects which World Bank funds. The major difference being that here the money will be paid not in advance, but as incentives for achieving results on the ground. You do the work, the states or the communities or the districts will do the work, whatever has been agreed upon, produce the results, and then get rewarded for that. That is the difference between the normal projects and a P4R project. And the scheme is now being implemented in the first phase, of course. This is being implemented in 222 blocks in 79 districts in 7 states, covering about 9,006 gram panchayats. Now, what are the major objectives of ATAL Bhujal Yojna? The first thing is strengthening institutional structure for groundwater governance in the state. We all know that one of the major issues related to groundwater governance is the pathetic or almost negligible infrastructure that is available with many of the states. You have got a few states like, for example, Maharashtra or Gujarat, which have got well-established systems for groundwater governance, but in the major part of the country, they are severely lacking in expertise and experience. So the purpose of the ATAL Bhujal Yojna is first to strengthen the institutional structure so that they are able to take up whatever challenges are coming in the field of groundwater governance. So this is proposed to be done under this scheme through improved groundwater and dissemination of data and improving the institutional structure also. This will result in improved groundwater monitoring and dissemination of data. People will become more aware of what is happening in the area. The second thing is promoting participation of communities and stakeholders, which ma'am was mentioning in her opening remarks. This is lacking at present, and one of the basic things of this project is the implementation of community-led Gram Panchayat-wise water security plans. This will definitely ensure the participation of communities. There is a long participatory process which is prescribed for preparation of this water security plan. And the third objective is encouraging efficient and planned use of funds. There is emphasis on implementation of interventions which are proposed in the water security plans through convergence of existing schemes, whether they are central or state government schemes. The fourth objective is encouraging efficient use of water, which is done through rewarding or incentivizing increase shown by the states in the area under efficient water use practices. Then facilitating increase in groundwater sustainability and availability. So this is proposed to be achieved through increasing groundwater, that is rising the groundwater level, bringing the groundwater levels up, which is an indication of groundwater improvement through various interventions. Now coming to the major concerns we are trying to address through this project or this scheme is, everybody knows about the widespread overexploitation of groundwater. We just talked about it. So this scheme aims at improving groundwater management in priority areas through a process of consultation and participatory engagement. Then another problem that we have now is groundwater management is not among major objectives of most existing schemes. You have got flagship schemes like Manrega, PMKSY, etc., which is going on in the country. But this, and of course, this help groundwater replenishment in some ways. But groundwater management is not among the major objectives of any of these schemes. So I'm happy to say that ATAL Bhujal Yojna is probably the first scheme in the country which exclusively looks at groundwater management and ways to improve it. So here we try to get these major schemes into the ATAL Bhujal Yojna by stressing on convergence of ongoing schemes for groundwater improvement. As has been told by our Secretary Sri UP Singh, our emphasis has always been on supply side measures and due attention has not been given to demand management. This project emphasizes demand management through appropriate interventions. There is a lot of incentive going for this component, which we will see in the subsequent slides. Inadequate community participation has been stressed repeatedly. Community participation is vital in planning and execution of the scheme. Insufficient sensitization, capacity building and awareness creation is another issue that is affecting groundwater management in our country. We have got a major thrust on training and capacity building under this scheme. Then another issue which we always talk about is NGOs have a lot of success stories to tell. We have got several stories like Hivre Bazaar, Ralegaon Siddhi, we have got Lapodia, different places across the states. So these success stories and best practices are rarely taken to scale through government programs. So here again, the program design of ATAL Bhujal Yojna have been incorporated in whatever lessons have been learned from success stories on participatory groundwater management. Now coming to the implementation area of ATAL Bhujal Yojna, we are having it in the first phase in 7 states, in 79 block districts, as I told. The graphic shows you where this scheme is being implemented currently. Sorry. So this will also tell you that we are trying to focus in areas, we have identified areas which represent different topologies and hydrogeological settings. You have got areas which are in the heart of the hard rock terrain of the country. You have got areas in the alluvial terrain, in the alluvial aquifers in Haryana. You have got the arid and semi-arid areas of Gujarat and Rajasthan, as well as you have areas in the areas where you have water sustainability problems like parts of Bundelkhand. So a total of around 1,37,000 square kilometers is being covered in the present phase under this scheme. Now, talking about the components of ATAL Bhujal Yojna, we have got, as I have been telling, there is a lack of capacity among the states for governing the groundwater, for the groundwater governance. So our first attempt will be institutional strengthening and capacity building. Out of 6,000 crores, we have allocated 1,400 crores for this purpose, where there will be strengthening of institutional mechanism, strengthening of groundwater monitoring networks, upgradation of water quality laboratories, plus a lot of awareness creation and capacity building. The major component of 6,000 crores, that is around 4,600 crores, will go to the incentive component, which I told is the focus area of this scheme, where we incentivize or reward states for improving their groundwater management practices. So these incentives will be given to the states for achieving various results, which are in these areas like user monitoring of groundwater related information and dissemination of data, preparation of community-led water security plans, convergence of public funding under ongoing schemes, and finally, as a result of all these activities, for showing rise or improvement in the declining trend of groundwater levels. Now, this is how the incentives, because now the incentives will be disbursed to the states under ATAL Bhujal Yojna through what we call DLIs, or disbursement linked indicators, which have been divided among these 5 DLIs. You have got low-hanging fruits like groundwater data disclosure or updating by the state. That is, whatever data they have collected historically, they have to disclose it in public domain in the portal of ATAL Bhujal Yojna or in the portal of the states or in the website of NWIC. They will be eligible for 10% of the incentives which is earmarked for them. Once you do a community consultation and finalize a water security plan, having a water budget and plans for fulfilling the gap between the demand and supply, or for improving the groundwater resources through various interventions, you become eligible for 15% of the incentives which are earmarked for you. You converge various schemes which are going on in the state for implementation of various interventions in the water security plan, you get another 20%. You ensure adoption of practices for efficient water use, micro irrigation, crop diversification, then separation of electricity feeders, whatever you feel is suitable for the area. It could be anything right from micro irrigation to crop diversification, or change in the feeders for separation of the feeders for electricity use for agriculture. You get the major amount, that is 40%. That is why I mentioned earlier that you have got a lot of emphasis on demand side management. As a result of all this, if you are able to achieve improvement in groundwater levels or reducing rates of decline, you will get the remaining 15%. This is how the incentives have been distributed. Now, this is just a snapshot of how much money the states will be getting. The highest amount, as per the project area suggested, population, the severity of the problem and all, Karnataka will have the highest share of incentives of around 1,201 crores. They will be eligible, followed by Rajasthan which is having a claim, which can have a claim for 1,189 crores, almost 1,190 crores. Here I would also like to mention that these are just allocations. It is not necessary that the states will get it at the end of the scheme or on a year-over-year basis. They have to really achieve the results for claiming this amount. And here another interesting thing about the project is, if you work better, you show results better than what is anticipated from you, you can still claim for amounts which are higher than the allocated amount. But of course, it will be at the cost of states which are not doing well. The laggards who are there, who are not able to show the results, they will lose money, and the states will, which show better results, which are really serious about this scheme and who are able to show results on the ground, can claim that money. So this, we hope, will sort of encourage a sort of healthy competition among the states in groundwater management. Now, coming to the institutional arrangements, here we have envisaged a 4-level institutional arrangement for monitoring and coordinating the scheme. It will start with the lowest one at the GP level, that is Gram Sabha or village water and sanitation committees, which are active in the villages. They will be rejuvenated, or their capacities will be built. They will be the basic units which will run this scheme. This will then escalate it to the district level, where we will have district program management units and district implementation partners. They constitute a very important part of this scheme. They will do the hand-holding of the communities. Where ma'am was talking about the involvement of NGOs and VOs, it is 100% certain that without their help, this scheme cannot run. It will further be escalated to the state level, where you have got a state program management unit to coordinate activities on a day-to-day basis. You have got a nodal department, which is the principal implementing agency. In most cases, they are the groundwater departments whose capacities will be built, whose institutional arrangements will be strengthened, and they will be able to do this. Then the whole thing will be coordinated by the state interdepartmental steering committees, which will have representatives of all line departments, not only groundwater. They will have agriculture, power, panchayati raj, forest, watershed. Every sector will be involved in this committee. Then finally, we have got a national program management unit, which I head as the project director, which will be supported by relevant experts for overall coordination and guiding of the states. You will have a national interdepartmental steering committee at the highest level, chaired by the Secretary Water Resources. And later, as I've already told, this is a results-based program. Somebody has to verify independently what results are being achieved by the states. We have got a TPGVA, that is Third-Party Government Verification Agency, to verify these achievements of the states independently. This agency is already in place, and we are planning to have the first verification in the month of December for disbursement of the first installment of incentives. Other important things which we consider in this scheme is, one important thing is, we are not envisaging any new institutions under this scheme. It is rather emphasized to leverage existing water user associations, village water and sanitation committees, and committees which have been constituted under Jal Jeevan Mission to be used for this scheme. So that is what I have mentioned. Activities will be dovetailed, because this is intricately connected with Jal Jeevan Mission, which proposes to provide drinking water through taps for almost 16 crore households in the country within a period of 3 to 4 years. So making groundwater sustainable will have a major impact on the success of Jal Jeevan Mission. Then second thing is, convergence among ongoing schemes is the key to the success of the program. That is, all the water security plans which are being planned or which will be made by the communities with the help of social service organizations or NGOs and with the help of the district implementation units will have to be done through convergence of ongoing schemes, because we will not be giving any money for implementation of water security plans. That the states will have to find sources from existing schemes and to ensure that they are completed for claiming the incentives. Then another important thing which we are emphasizing is the mainstreaming of gender issues. That is to ensure that the gender issues are properly addressed and the women folk who bear the brunt of any shortage of water, whether it is surface water or groundwater, they have to be addressed properly. And we will ensure that participation of women in planning and execution of the scheme will be definitely taken care of. Another issue is the leveraging of innovative schemes. We are very happy that, as our secretary was mentioning, we have got several schemes coming up like Mera Pani Meri Virasat in Haryana. You have got Bijli Bachao, Paisa Kamao in Punjab. These schemes are directly connected to ATAL Bhujal Yojna actually, because they can be included in ATAL Bhujal Yojnas, which will make the states eligible for getting the incentives without any further efforts. So one of the objectives of this scheme is to leverage the innovative schemes which are launched by several states. Now, before I end, these are some of the consultations which are going on, which have been going on, because as Dr. Saha mentioned initially in his opening remarks, this is a very challenging scheme and we don't have any examples to go by in the country at the government level. We learn as we do it, and we have to definitely learn from the mistakes of what others have done, success stories of other interventions done in the NGO by the NGOs or CBOs or VOs, and we are learning in the process. Already we have got a complete program guidelines prepared for this. That also we say that it will be a living document, because we don't know how this program is going to proceed and how it is going to end up. So we will modify it and refine it as we go along and make it a sort of complete document by the end of the program. And our hope is that this is only the beginning of ATAL Bhujal Yojna in 9006 Gram Panchayats of the country. We hope to see it spread across the whole length and breadth of the country, in the entire country over the years to come. And we expect certain outcomes from this. Definitely improvement in the groundwater sustainability in target areas is the direct benefit which we are envisaging. This program will definitely ensure source sustainability for interventions under Jal Jeevan Mission, as I have mentioned. We hope this will contribute to the Honorable PM's goal of doubling farmers' income, which he mentioned in his budget speech last year. Then the ultimate objective is not groundwater improvement. It is the inculcation of an attitudinal and behavioral changes at the grassroots level. Again, quoting our secretaries up, we would like to see water respected and treated with the care it deserves. That is how we see this program. It is an effort to start a small beginning at least, to ensure that people understand the value of water, especially the grassroots level workers. We bring back our traditional ways to the extent possible to respect groundwater so that it lasts for our future generations. Of course, I am happy that we are finding some encouraging signs about the acceptance of the philosophy of ATAL Bhujal Yojna, because now quite recently the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh has made a declaration that entire UP, they will be implementing groundwater management schemes on the lines of ATAL Bhujal Yojna. Karnataka has also taken a similar decision that in the area which are not under ATAL Bhujal Yojna at present also, they will continue to work in the same manner for all the remaining overexploited and critical blocks in the state. Of course, we have got the examples of Mera Pani Meri Virasat, Bijli Bachao, Paisa Kamao in Punjab. and the examples which are coming up in UP and Karnataka, we take this as the acceptance of philosophy of Atal Bhujal Yojna by the people of the country, and we hope to see it spread further in the days to come. I would like to rest my case here. Thank you all very much, and I'll be happy to clear any doubts in the session, in the interactive session. Thank you very much.
I think, Madam, now the wonderful presentation, Dr. Nandakumaran. Madam, now
Yes, sir.
with permission, can we invite Dr. R.N. Sankhua?
Yes, please. Yes, Dr. Saha.
Okay. Dr. R.N. Sankhua, please. Sir, try to adhere to time, please. Sankhua sahab. Sankhua sahab, can you hear me? Please.
Yes, I think Sankhua sir is sharing his screen. So can you please speak so that we can check your audio? Sankhua sir, can you please speak? You are sharing your screen, but we are not able to hear you yet. Sankhua sir, we are not able to hear you. Can you please speak so that we can check your audio? You're on mute now.
Unmute करिए.
I think he's checking his settings. Sometimes when we do the settings, it goes on mute. Let's see. Dr. Sankhua, if you're able to hear us, can you please unmute yourself? You're on mute. Or I think both video and audio is disabled. He's working on his settings, I believe.
You are not yet audible.
Yes, Dr. Sankhua, now you're all corrected. Can you please speak?
Yes.
And again, he's on mute. I'm not sure.
You are not yet. Not yet.
I believe he's trying to speak, but there is some audio issues from his end.
Yeah.
If you'd like to discuss it over offline, that can be done if you want to contact him.
Not yet. You are from phone or from laptop?
All right. So in the meantime, probably maybe Neelima ma'am, if she has something to share, she can continue and we can discuss with Dr. Sankhua offline and we can fix his audio issue. I'll hand over to Dr. Dipankar to take the decision now because we can Dr. Sankhua.
In the meantime, Dr. Neelima, you have mentioned about the virtual water. There is an query, not query, some opinion from one Kaushik Saab that he has mentioned about the role of NGOs, VOs, and he has particularly mentioned that virtual water has been a catchy word, but so far has not found its place in policies and management. So some thoughts from you.
Thank you, Dr. Saha, and thank you, Dr. Kaushik. I think what you've said is absolutely right, and which is what I was also saying, that it is time that we brought the thinking and the conversation around virtual water more into our mainstream conversations. And like I had mentioned, that in case of certain industries like the beverage industry or some other high water consumption, visibly high water consumption industries, people have begun to talk about virtual water and the entire footprint. And you heard Miss Corinne in the morning, the head of SDC, she spoke about virtual water. So it's not, I feel the conversation on virtual water is beginning to happen. And it is, my suggestion was also the same, that it will help drive greater efficiencies across the entire system. If we begin to think about virtual water across, we begin to talk about it more, make people more aware of it. A lot of times when we do awareness campaigns amongst communities, urban communities also, we are only talking about the visible water consumption. We don't talk about the virtual water. And like I said, efficiencies across the line, the
देखिए मैं
production line can
अभी
be
एंटर
brought
करिए किया मैंने
that is there.
नहीं
Sorry. Um,
बोलना
so,
I believe Dr. Sankhua has joined. Maybe
ओके
do you want to continue or do you want me to check his audio, man?
you can check Dr. Sankwa's audio.
ऑडिबल
There's
नाउ
a question for Dr. Nandakumaran, which we can take afterwards.
All right.
इज इट ऑडिबल
Sankhua, can you please continue speaking? Yes, it's working now.
वर्किंग नाउ
Yeah.
Voice is coming, but it's a bit low, sir.
okay so I'll be a bit louder so it's all right okay
Yes, yes, yes. Please.
This is good.
okay shall I start it now
Yes, start. Please start.
okay okay so good afternoon to all so I'll be talking on the topic management water resources that is mostly on policies of sustainability given the backdrop can you think what will India look like in the next quarter of the century my this thing is getting down or not ideally.
Sir, your voice is okay. Can you turn on your
Hello?
definition to LD? Can you make it to LD at the bottom right? You'll find HD and LD. In case you have bandwidth issue, you can convert it into LD and you
Yeah,
can.
that is not a problem. Yeah. I'm putting an LD now. Is it all right?
Perfect. Yes, now you can start your screen share again and you can start.
Sharing.
All right, sir.
Slide sharing. Slide sharing. Just one sec. Slides are
is
visible now.
not yet visible, sir. Oh, yes, it's loading, sir. Perfect.
Yeah, visible, visible.
Okay,
Yes, you
fine.
can make it to full screen.
Full screen. Okay. Okay. So now, within this backdrop, if you think that what will India look like in the next quarter century, so what role will water play, especially in terms of sustainability? And it is rather difficult to predict or provide a concise answer to that. So all the factors of implications of water, how much water we would have, how much water we would use, how much water would move from one use to another or one region from another. So how it would impact the water that comes back from the return flows. Also the issues like water quality, water quantity, and how it will give us the new conflict and how we can solve that. So with this background, I would like to just touch upon the point that is sustainable water requirements, process elements of reforms, improve governance, and rethinking about the water sequence, strategies for sustainable WRM. So these things I'll be touching upon. Now, as you know that there is a need to hone the instrument changes or structural changes to improve the sustainability of India's water resources future. That is at central level, at state level, local levels by finding the gainful solutions to guide use, allocation and distribution. Now, if you see the sustainable use, you have that the water available in sufficient quantity and quality at appropriate time in an indefined identifiable demand with environmental security and human acceptability. So with this concept, so we'll go for the sustainable of water resources. What are the challenges behind? Already my earlier speakers they have talked about this, but still if I talk about this, So we are not able to cope with the pace of urbanization with regard to reforms, institutions, skill development, asset creation and maintenance, and which depends upon nice governance, social and political will, and the context, wide-ranging awareness in all stakeholders, inclusiveness, and which requires a political will at the strong level, a vision, and courage as well as a capable institutions. Now, if you see this sustainable water management, it will require allocation of water, competing demands, balancing financial social resources required to support necessary sustainable water systems. But how it can be defined or evaluated? So what are the challenges associated with that? And what are the areas of greatest potential improvement? And what role does our country says for the development status, habit and practice? So in this, we can say we have two key points meeting the objectives. So the key points are all forms of water must be considered usable, reusable, that is water source reusable, and increasing agriculture crop water production, which will represent the largest opportunity for reducing total water consumption and will require to meet food security needs. Now the vital issues will be how it will be evaluated, as I said. Now, if you see this, the methods evaluating these water management practices range from relatively simple indicator to these complex levels. Going forward, if I talk on this, a series of national and local level initiatives have also been announced to promote water conservation, stressing on wastewater cycle, local reuse, and earlier my speaker talked about this Jal Shakti Abhiyan, Jal Jeevan Mission. These are also the key programs. The move, what you said just now, what I said just now, these are help to promote a harmonious and sustainable coexistence of biodiversity in settlements, and also in the light of these, a positive outcomes, that is the bottom to top approach. We have already forwarded all that. Now, if you see, in Indian context, we have National Action Plan for Climate Change, that is 2008 in June we have started. We have Energy Policy in 2020. We have National Water Policy Draft, that is 2020. We have Environmental Policy 2020. But finally, what are the outcome? The outcome was no integration was apparent in these schemes. Though we have different schemes, but no apparent integration was apparent, was absent in this. So the integration which need to be done, we lack that. So talking about the policy issues, beyond the legal framework, we need to go for this public stewardship, and also we should have these positive outcomes on the environment, climate changing goals, and that should combat through this collective action and widespread public consumption alert. We need to have actionable actions on this. We not only place these ambitious goals on environment climate change, but also we have to see this development sustainability, and we need to see this renewing of water sustainability. We have diluted regulations. Though there are many regulations, we have diluted regulations which seem to be less consistent with these ambitions and the overall aspiration to be a gainful leader is, against facing contemporary challenges in water resources. And then interlinking of rivers, if I talk on that, so on case-to-case basis, we need to go beyond starting the development, which is lesser environment cost involving, and we should innovate ways to develop with reduced negative impact in the environment. So in ILR, we need to talk on this. And now, if you talk on this water management policies, rights, and water allocation, we have this community management, we have the water markets, we need to have this information management and water rights. Though water rights is not a term in Indian context now, present time being, but still we need to go for that. We need to go for economic incentives to improve the water allocations. We need to see this land and water management combined together as a whole. Now, if you go for this community management, जो participatory irrigation management a good example, but still it needs decentralization, and sometimes part of that should be centralized. So that means PIM is a very good example, but still we need to improve that PIM to have our objectives fulfilled. Then management of this tertiary canals, management of other feeding canals, condition of the successful success, which includes this clear specification of rights and responsibility, capacity development of the irrigators. In water markets, though India doesn't have a good water market, but still we need to have increased emphasis on water demand management, market allocation, and water rights. So that should be the correct option. and we need to have the regulations on board so that we can have that. We need to have the informed management, that means management informed system for agriculture and drinking water supply and other things we need to have on board also. And while talking about the economy incentives, we have this, we have to include the prices, taxes, other things. So now, if you talk of these important processes, elements, and for reforms, what we need to do? We need to have the reform, the processes sort of thing, which are more likely to succeed if they allow for public consultations and consensus building. And also, we need to have this, you have to secure these property rights for the water users. We need to have we need to provide these options for the definition of rights and corresponding administration systems. We have to consider the feasibility and direct command and control over these indirect incentives, and we need to implement the approaches for water MIS. We need to generate a political will, which is a must in order to push through the policies, legal reforms, and associated regulations. Providing necessary financial and allocations also, that is also need of the hour. So if you see this rethinking sequence, whatever laws, regulations we had, if you think of the sequences, what you can have? We can have these policies, property rights, and institutions which are capable of coping with this rapidly increasing demand of land and water sources, which are critical for successful adaptation of this equitable, sustainable water resource use. Now, if you see this marketable rights for water, so which will induce this users to consider the full opportunity cost of water, including its value and alternate uses. So we need to provide incentives to economize on the uses of water, which is around 85% for the agriculture sector. We need to see that. At the same time also, we need to see this, we need to address the inefficient and inequitable allocations of land and water, depriving the local populations, indigenous groups, women, youth of access and secure rights. And we know that no one or not a single one fits all the solutions. That means no one size fits all solutions to reform the policies, rights, and institutions. So reform is a long haul process spanning not just the years to decade, having repeated dialogues, but still to have these experiments and policy laid out. Institutions, policy to see and administration system you see in India and approaches to reform need to adapt it to the degree of scarcity of resources, seeing this population density, history of legacies, and other things also in Indian context. Now, if you see, one thing you can say that, so one way to ensure the appropriateness of various aspects of water management in a water regulatory authority system, we need to see that. At the same time, also the concerns and critics about and the lacuna and improvements required for the current models of independent water regulatory authorities must be also addressed. Also, at the same time, we need to see that a separate system is actually required to resolve the local as well as universal issues related to water governance in Indian context. So this regulation, what you see, or what resolution, what you see, so that needs to form the political, economic, and financial, social aspects. So therefore, what I say here, that instead of suggesting establishments to mere water regulatory authorities, policies should be explicitly recommend water regulatory authorities that operate in a transparent basis and in participatory basis. So, if you see the reversing this usual approach of projecting the future demands, in that case you can see that about a supply side response to meet the demand, we must also start from the fact that availability of fresh water in nature is finite, and now it is 99.2 surface water groundwater mixed together, that is virgin yield, and we need to learn this, learn to manage the water needs within that availability. So this means that we need to have a restraint on the growth of demand of water other than the basic needs. So we need to have to be very decisive, and we need to have more equitable and inclusive WRM. The primacy has to decide either will go for a big dam for this water development projects, or we need to go for these decentralized, local, community-led water harvesting structures or development programs, so that we can see this future better. Now, if you talk of the strategies, so strategies are many, but few of the strategies, important strategies, I would like to just outline. So we need to improve the governance in the use of water resources, in the provision of water services. The fact is that the enormous backlog for deferred maintenance in our irrigation system, we need to see that also. The policy framework again does not happen focus on the area, but the general poor quality of public irrigation and water supply services, there is much thing to think about, and it is further we can say that so legal framework is desirable and that too implementable in the way. So for the political executive provide the norms, propose norms, execute norms, and we need to go in that. Now we have this permanent national water dispute, which is tribunal, which is already tabled in Parliament in 2008, which I was back to that also, framing this bills and all that. So there is again to begin it will make the perfect sense to evolve appropriate state and river basin specific institutions. But in this case, what happens in the National Water Dispute Tribunal? Some states are opposing, some states are on the positive side of that. So next one is National Water Policy, which we have drafted in 2020. So this proposes the encouragement of interbasin water transfers. But while doing this interlinking rivers or interbasin water transfers, vital safeguards of environmental carrying capacity and sustainable secure lives and livelihoods should not be also excluded from the policy. It is true that neither the national water policy nor the state water policies have made any impact on the practices so far we have seen. So what are the further strategies? We can see that we need to have the engineering water conservancy, we need to have this resource water conservancy. In these two things, we can have these better strategies to cope with this water resource management sustainability. Now, if you see this rational strategies, visions, and operational plans for WRM, we can have sustainable water resource management. We should have satisfying things for social economic development demands, and also it should have long-term strategic vision for water resource development. It should have also operational mid to long-term water resource planning. Though we have that, but still implementation becomes difficult in real Indian scenario. We need to look at these things also. At the same time, we need to have moving from vision to action. An important procedure also need to make for mid to long-term water resource planning. So why this is essential? Because this is essential for the construction of water supply projects or this agriculture water supply projects, or in making the operational water supply plans, newer projects or other measures which need to be carefully planned, and construction projects should reasonably scheduled and arranged according to the patterns of water scarcity, depending upon the area where it is case and all that. Next, what need to have? We need to have a cooperative federalism. What is that cooperative federalism? In this case, water is a state subject that everyone knows. Center also has always played an important role in this decision-making processes and interstate discourse. So now states or regions have to be involved in a very cooperative and concerted approach where there is a win-win situation for both the central states. Because when I'm dealing with this 8 states in this southern India, I'm finding this very difficult unless there is a cooperative federalism existing. So we cannot solve the processes of this intervention transfers, and strategies will fail without a cooperative federalism. An emotive and political and highly decisive issue in the center states relations are going to be highlighted by this, and this will state the Indian federalism in a whole as a whole. So that this process has to be the dialogue driven between the states and center and local regional places. So that should take care of the sensitivities of the states, of the public, and should not be imposed on them. So now if we see this protection of water resources and reconstruction of water environments, we need to see that this water pollution and environmental degradation are two key factors causing the quality induced water scarcity. Now, water environment protection plan, including the detailed measures for the reconstruction of degraded water environment as a part of IWRP, is necessary for sustainable water resource management. Now, if you see other things also, we need to have have an efficient capacity building. We need to have better hardware. We need to have better software. Hardware in the sense that we need to have these physical projects and facilities like water storage, reservoirs, delivery systems, treatments, supplies, utilization, all those things. And software part means that is system administration, legislation, and technical measures, human skills, public morality, and other things we need to put into. Now, if the demand management of water efficiency, we need to see this meeting future needs will depend on more on demand management rather than supply management. So which needs to be given priority, and especially that should go through evolving the agriculture system, which can economize in water use and maximize the value of water. Also, you can go through this bringing the maximum efficiency in water use. We have this water use efficiency manual prepared by Minister of Jal Shakti. We can say that at the same time also need to have institutional arrangement for regulation, for promotion, for controlling the efficient water use in a strategic sustainable water resource management. Now, we have this water management framework law in 2018. We had framed that from Central Water Commission, and after it was framed, it was tabled to this Parliament. Now it has not come as finally. So even while it is recognized that the states have the rights to frame the suitable policies, laws, and regulations on the water, there is also a need to evolve a broad overarching national legal framework of general principles of water, so that which will lead to the way to this essential legislation on water governance, so that the state disputes will be minimized, and that the state center will have a good relation, and we can have the devolution of the necessary authorities to this lower tiers of government to deal with this local water situations. Now, such a water framework law of this thing must recognize the water as a scarce subject, and that should be managed as a commodity resource, not by an abundant resource, and by the state, by the regions, and the public trust doctrine to achieve this good food security, livelihood must be also resorted to that. Now we have the Indian Easement Act 1882, so which also may have to be modified so that we can have land and water, this framework combined together to have better results. So legislation is also needed through this to deal with this, to enable this establishment of basin authorities, that is RBOs, river basin authorities, with the appropriate powers to plan, manage, and design or regulate utilization of water sources in the basins. Now, if you talk all the things, a stricter water resource environment plan, including the detailed measures for the reconstruction, must be there in it. Now, the degraded water environments as a part of this integrated water resource planning, which is a must for the sustainable water management, we need to look at that. So, after looking at that, also we need to have the water pollution, and environmental degradation. So, which are important factors causing the quality induced water scarcity. We need to also look at that. Now, with this, I would like to say that the appropriate policies which have been framed or which are yet to framed, the institutions which can provide incentives to users to regulate the uses and invest to improve land and water sources must be taken care of while doing the sustainable water resource management. Legal framework like this framework I just told now, it is desirable, but the way ahead is for the political executive proposed norms and guidelines, so which is forward looking and which should be scientific sound and should be designed for these greater goods for the states and interstate relations and central and state relations for water sharing without any conflict. And vitally, the institutions, policies, or system administrations, what you are just saying, and approaches to reform these must be adapted to see the degree of scarcity of resources. Somewhere it is plenty, somewhere it is less. If you see the Brahmaputra basins, it is having say 528.27 BCM of water, whereas if you see Pennar or Kaveri basins, it is very scarce basin. If you see Krishna, it is fully utilized basin. If you see Godavari, some part of Godavari is having higher water availability, and some part of in the upper part of Godavari it's lower, having lower water availability. So seeing a part of this basin and sub basins in a basin or basin as a whole, we need to decide what type of legal framework will fit into that, what type of policies or administration systems will fit into that. Then only our system can be sustainable, our water source can be sustainable. We can have the equities and efficiencies of water use. So as I said that there is no one size fit for all solution. We need to stagger it, we need to customize it, we need to draw the lessons from both successes and failures of other countries, maybe from China, maybe from Mekong Basin, maybe from Australia, that Murray-Darling Basin, maybe from other basins. So then only you can substitute that. So in the last, I would like to have this sustainable development, like people, their needs, the impacts of this behavior over time, patterns of population growth, we are seeing that, and the consumption, cultural patterns, and this activities of these politicians, or that is political activities, and to the environment, the economy must be considered and must be adapted to our sustainable water resource management development. So there is no more urgent time to address and tackle the world's water resource crisis, or in particular India's water resource crisis than now itself, because we are having people constantly being reminded of this water to fight against the spread of this COVID-19 in the present situation. And I will like to resort to this, that at the last I would say we cannot afford to forget that every drop counts, every drop of water that counts. So this is what I mean to say. So thank you all, thank you very much for the present hearing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sankhua. So
Any questions, please?
there are a couple of questions for Dr. Nandakumaran. So Dr. Saha, how much time do we have to take the questions?
Please finish within 4-5 minutes, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure, I can do it, ma'am, with your permission. I see
Yes,
3
please.
questions in my question box. One is from Dr. Anita Shah. She has asked whether Atal Bhujal Yojna has been formulated with the involvement of all stakeholders, including communities. Yes, we have had several rounds of communication with all stakeholders, including right from the ministry at the central level to the community organizations also. Definitely, their inputs have been taken while designing this scheme. And some of the agencies, I remember, we have had lots of consultations with Argyam and all the networked organizations of Argyam Bangalore. We have included Aquadam, organization working on ground, NGO working with groundwater in Maharashtra. We have had ACT in several discussions, ACT Gujarat. We have had discussions with Marvi Foundation, which is working in Marvi Foundation is working in Rajasthan and Gujarat also. So all these agencies are still we are in consultation. I am happy to share now that we are continuing our discussions with a lot of NGOs now also, because we have entered into an MOA with a participatory groundwater management consortium, which is being driven by Argyam. So we are having almost weekly meetings. We are taking up various activities for capacity building and for ensuring community involved program in a virtual program. Then another question that I had is from this is also regarding plans for capacity building of the communities. We have already, with the help of community organizations, again thinking about building the capacity of the district implementation to handhold.
I'm sorry, Dr. Nandakumar. I think your voice is breaking. Is it possible you can turn off your video and you can speak so that at least we can hear you? Or you can make it into LD mode. I think he has a bad connection. Probably I'll request Ms. Neelima to continue until he joins back. You're on mute, ma'am.
Sorry. Yes, I think maybe Dr. Nandakumaran, are you back now?
Yes, he's back.
Will they be what you call incentivized? Actually, whatever interventions. Yeah, I'm back. You are able to.
Yes, we are able to hear you, Dr. Nandakumaran. If you can take the other questions. One was on roof water harvesting, if that is allowed under, I think we've lost you again. But I think one set of response that Dr. Nandakumaran gave was about the institutional mechanisms that have been created at the district level and at other levels for inclusion of or taking inputs from civil society organizations and other players. Dr. Nandakumaran, you are back. If you can, we have, I think, only 4 minutes left. If you can talk about roof water harvesting systems and the other point that you were making. No.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you are.
Yeah, what I was telling is any intervention that is part of the water security plans which are being prepared by the Gram Panchayats will be eligible for the incentive. But exclusively for urban habitations, we don't have urban habitations exclusively in this scheme. But whichever district has taken urban habitations, rooftop rainwater harvesting in those areas will also be eligible for incentivization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nandakumaran, and thank you very much, Dr. Sankhua. I really want to extend a deep thank you to both of you. Dr. Nandakumaran, of course, the ATAL Bhujal Yojna right now is of great relevance and importance to everyone, and you can see that from the questions, the level of engagement in the scheme from all kinds of people, whether they are academics or practitioners. which is really nice. And all of us wish you well and most success in this exciting
Thank you
new
very much, ma'am.
program.
We'll definitely require it. It's a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. And also a big thank you to Dr. Sankhua. I think, Dr. Sankhua, you raised some of the really difficult things which are hard to, for example, about negotiating demand, about policies, rights and institutions, and all of those. Those are the things that often we sidestep or duck, especially the competing demand claims in society of different. So thank you very much, Dr. Sankhwa. Thank you. So over to
Thank you,
you,
ma'am.
Dr. Saha. Thank you everyone
Thank
for
you, Dr.
the
Saha.
fantastic session.
Yes, right, right. Okay, madam, you have not mentioned about your talk, but it was a wonderful talk, very enriching, and all three. Thanks to all three panelists, and I think we are behind schedule, so quickly we'll switch over to the technical session 3. Mr. Amis, can you arrange
Yes,
for the technical session 3 quickly?
yes, sir. I'm
Thank
ending
you
this session.
again.
I'm starting the next one.
Thanks, Madam Neelima Khetan, Dr. P. Nandakumaran, Dr. R.N. Sankhua. Very enriching presentation. Thank you for coming. Mr.